Good evening, everyone. We will call a meeting to order. We'll begin with the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We will now have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of our national anthem. If we can get an adoption of the agenda for the September 24th, 24 regular council meeting. Councillor Riccio Spagnolo, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? That carries. Any disclosures of community interest? There being none. Adoption of the minutes from our regular meeting of council held September 10th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? And that carries. Mayor's comments. Since we won't be meeting on September 30th this year, we felt this evening's meeting was our opportunity to recognize National Truth and Reconciliation Day. Each year, September 30th is a federally recognized National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and we reflect and honor survivors, their families, and the communities affected by the legacy of Indian residential schools. Learning more about residential schools is one step in a long journey towards truth-telling and meaningful reconciliation. Let's watch the Residential Schools in Canada timeline video created by Historica Canada to learn about these significant dates in the history of residential schools. Please play the video.
For more than 200 years, religious orders run mission schools for Indigenous children, the precursors to the Government of Canada's residential school system. The Mohawk Institute becomes a boarding school. Run by the Anglican Church, it is the first government-funded residential school in Canada. A government report recommends Indigenous children be separated from their parents in order to assimilate them into Western culture. These recommendations influence federal laws and policies designed to strip Indigenous people of their culture and rights. Isle Cross opens in northern Saskatchewan. The majority of students are Métis. The government takes authority over Indigenous people and education for First Nations. The Indian Act gives the Canadian government control over Indigenous rights and culture. The Act includes only First Nations as status Indians. It excludes Métis and Inuit. Prime Minister John A. Macdonald authorizes the creation of the residential school system, which is designed to isolate Indigenous children from their families and cut all ties to their cultures. The number of schools across Canada quickly climbs to over 40. The Government of Canada requires First Nations children aged 7 to 16 to attend residential school. Dr. Peter Henderson Bryce exposes the government's neglect of Indigenous children's health, including alarmingly high death rates of residential school students. More than 80 institutions are in operation across Canada, the most at any one time. 4 students are investigated for arson. Others reportedly cheer as they watch the school burn. This is one of dozens of fires set by students across Canada as a form of resistance. Inuit children are officially included in the residential school system. 6 schools open in the Western Arctic as the government takes over the administration of many church-run residential schools. Grolier Hall and Stringer Hall open in Inuvik, housing 500 students. More than 20,000 Indigenous children are taken from their families by government social workers and placed in foster care or adoption homes, often with non-Indigenous families. Adoptees lose connection with their Indigenous language, culture, and identity. 12-year-old Chani Wenjak dies after escaping from the Cecilia Jeffrey Residential School. A formal investigation follows. The all-white jury finds that residential schools cause tremendous emotional and psychological problems. The Canadian government takes over responsibility for the remaining schools from the churches. Thousands of Indigenous students are enrolled at the 28 residential schools that are still running in Canada. Phil Fontaine, head of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, speaks publicly of the abuse he suffered at Fort Alexander Indian Residential School. He calls for a public inquiry, which the federal government initiates in 1991. Gordon's Residential School is the last federally run school to close. The report recommends a public inquiry into the effects of residential schools, including language loss and trauma. The government provides compensation to survivors, including the Common Experience Payment and a focus on funding and supporting Indigenous health and healing services. The agreement establishes funds for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or the TRC. Prime Minister Stephen Harper apologizes to former students, their families, and communities for Canada's role in the operation of residential schools. Provincial and territorial apologies follow in the years ahead. After hosting events across Canada, the TRC releases a summary of its findings. It includes 94 calls to action aimed at redressing the legacy of residential schools and assisting in the process of Canadian reconciliation. The News Centre holds a permanent archive of materials and testimonies on residential schools gathered during the TRC. The TRC characterizes Canada's treatment of Indigenous people as cultural genocide. Thousands of children died due to Canada's residential school system. More than 80,000 survivors and their families still live with its legacy.
Many people have said over the years, why can't you just get over it and move on? And my answer has always been, why can't you always remember this? And until people show that they have learned from this, we will never forget.
September 30th is also recognized as Orange Shirt Day, an Indigenous-led grassroots commemorative day inspired by the story of Indian residential school survivor Phyllis Webstad. Phyllis was 6 years old when she wore her new orange shirt for her first day at residential school. Her shirt was immediately taken from her by school staff. To honor the children who survived Indian residential schools and remember those who did not, many Canadians across the country wear an orange shirt on September 30th. On the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, let's take time to reflect about the survivors, their families, and the communities affected by residential schools. Please wear orange and participate in the many events and activities being held across Windsor-Essex County. Other comments for today, we have our Franco-Ontarian flag raising ceremony, which is tomorrow, September 25th at 2 p.m. here at the Civic Center. Please join our local schools that will be in attendance to raise the flag. The LaSalle Vipers are back in action, and tomorrow you can not only catch a great game of hockey and cheer on our team, but you can also chat with LaSalle Chief of Police. He will be at the Vollmer Center tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. Come share your thoughts and ideas about the LaSalle Police Service and help shape the 2025 to 2028 LaSalle Police Strategic Business Plan. Saturday, September 28th is Ontario Test Your Smoke Alarm Day. So LaSalle Fire Service is asking residents to press the test button on their smoke alarms to test that they are working. You can visit the LaSalle Fire Service website and social media pages for more information. Sunday, September 29th is the LaSalle Last Night Market for the Summer Series being held at the Event Center on Front Road from 5 to 8 p.m. There's something for the whole family, live music, mad science, and a marketplace with a variety of vendors. And finally, it's with mixed emotions that we announce the retirement of a few important team members in LaSalle. Joe Pilato, leader of Roads and Drainage. Joe joined the Public Works Department in 1999. Chris Ruthven. Chris began his career with the town on June 20th, 2005. He dedicated 12 years to LaSalle Water Department before transitioning to LaSalle Roads Department in 2017. And after 19 years of committed service in the Public Works Department, Chris is retiring from the town of LaSalle. And last night was Police Chief Duncan Davies' last Police Service Board meeting, and the official change of command ceremony will take place on October 7th. Please join us in congratulating Joe, Chris, and Chief Duncan Davies on their retirement. We have no public meetings or hearings or presentations and delegations, so we'll go right to our staff reports with item 1, the disposable of municipally owned property at 1610 Sprucewood Avenue, and our Director of Planning and Development, Ms. Beggs, will present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. With your permission, I'll just share my screen. Whoops. Okay, so we are in receipt of an application to formally dispose of a property that's under the town's name, a municipally owned property known as 1610 Sprucewood Avenue. I'm not sure if we're able to make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So we are in receipt of an application to purchase this property known as 1610 Sprucewood Avenue from Timberland Homes. And the property, the municipally owned property at 1610 has frontage on Sprucewood and is roughly half an acre in size. The property is designated Town Center District in our official plan and zoned Town Center TC1 in our zoning bylaw for the municipality. As part of the disposal process and entertaining a discussion with the proponent, an appraisal was obtained from Bauer and Associates. Bauer and Associates is typically an appraiser that we work with in terms of getting valuations done on behalf of the town. An appraiser was obtained, and the appraiser appraised the property at $629,000. Mr. Piccioni, on behalf of Timberland, has agreed to pay the full appraised price should council endorse this disposal. So our understanding of the current application for the property is that he is looking at potentially building a retail plaza on the existing site, which is shown in the air photo, the site aerial rendering there of the existing plaza on the corner. As well as you can see it in context where his existing office building is being built to neighboring properties to the east. This does not preclude the applicant from having to obtain any Planning Act approvals, so he'll still need to go through an H removal process with the municipality, and the property is still subject to site plan control. We have had some preliminary discussions with the developer about those processes, and he's aware that he needs to undertake those processes, and that doesn't, this disposal of that property doesn't preclude him from having to go through those initiatives with the municipality. So tonight, we are asking council for support for the recommendation to dispose of the municipally owned lands in keeping with the conditions outlined within the recommendations of the report. I'm available should there be any questions, and we also have Mr. Piccioni here in the audience should council have any direct questions for the applicant.
Thank you very much. Members of council, do you have any questions or comments regarding the report? Councillor Reno? And sorry, if we can go back to the other screen just so I can see Councillor Desjardins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just had a question for the planning department. Currently, do we have anything on this land? Do we have any trails? Do we have anything of significance that will have to be dealt with before the disposal?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the property is currently vacant. It's just kept with grass and lawn, and we continue to mow and maintain the property. But there's no structures located on the property.
Thank you.
Councillor Carrick?
I'll move the recommendation if there's no further comments.
Councillor Burns? Support? No other questions, comments? There being none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? That carries. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the one-year extension of part lot control bylaw 8350 for part of blocks 6 and 7 on 12M661 designated as part 88, 89, 102, 103, 124, and 125 on the 12R27 911. Gudrun Beggs, our Director of Planning and Development, will present this as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is a pretty standard extension request. We received an application for a request to extend an existing part lot control exemption bylaw. These bylaws are typically in place for 3 to 5 years. It's my understanding that the applicant has a few more lots that are yet to be developed on this street. I believe it's Tom Toth. And so the applicant is looking for a 1-year extension to that bylaw to be able to construct those remaining semi-detached dwelling units. I'm available for questions, and as well as a representative of the applicant is also in the audience tonight if there should be additional questions.
Okay, members of council, questions or comments? Councillor Carrick?
Through your worship, so I have no problem with this. Just a quick question about, are things slowing down, or is it just a delay in certain lots that are being sold out there through the real estate practices? Asking why it's taking another year, that's all.
Well, I can answer as far as real estate goes. Yes, it's slowed down a little bit. I don't know if administration wants to add anything about the development itself.
So it's my understanding that there are pending sales for these particular lots, and that's why they need to get the extension of this bylaw obtained. We also actually have the bylaw on tonight's agenda for approval and consideration so that they don't miss that window. So I think things are slowing down, but these lots that they're considering building on are already tied up.
Any other questions or comments? There being none, you have a recommendation in front of you. Councillor Desjardins, are you moving or have a question? Move? Okay, moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Councillor Riccio Spagnolo. All in favor? And that carries as well. Item 3 is the LaSalle Landing noise bylaw exemption request, and we have our Deputy CAO, Mr. Mara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight's report is seeking an exemption from our noise bylaw. As council is aware, we have a small little project going on at the LaSalle Landings. We're entering into a time where there's going to be a lot of construction activity down there. One of the main construction activities that will be occurring within the next 3 to 4 weeks is the concrete pour of the trail loop that is part of that project. Work such as this concrete pour is a rather large pour, and it needs to happen continuously from beginning to end. So from the time the first truck arrives until the time the last trowel is done on the concrete. So this work is expected to take between 15 and 17 hours. So tonight we're seeking a noise bylaw exemption because we will be working, or the contractor will be working from approximately 6 a.m. in the morning until about midnight, and we'll be working outside the hours of the noise, what's restricted in the noise bylaw. We've indicated a range of dates, so October 15th to October 31st. There is a range in there because it's weather dependent. We need to make sure as the area is being prepped today and tomorrow and the next couple weeks, they will be monitoring the weather, and they have to find that perfect window to pour this concrete. So there is a request for a noise bylaw exemption, and it will be only for 1 day within that period. As we get closer, we will communicate the exact day out through social media. So with that, if council is obliged to approve the recommendation to issue this noise bylaw exemption for a 1 day for the LaSalle Landing project.
Any questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor Capetta, and then Councillor Reno.
Thank you, through your worship. I have a question from a resident who lived in the area. They were not opposed to it. They just wanted to know what they could expect. And I think, Mr. Mara, you're saying trucks, people working. We're not talking about jackhammers or anything of that to that nature. It's simply, I understand what a concrete pour is, but they asked me and I just didn't want to mislead them with what they can expect.
Yes, concrete pours are unique. So for the first couple hours, so during the day from 6 a.m. until probably about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there'll be constantly trucks coming in and laying down the concrete. And then there's a period of time of real slow action while the concrete sets before they can get on it and start finishing it. The main noise in the evening will be power trawls, like a lawnmower size equipment kind of running, but no jackhammers. It will be more on that type of stuff. So there will be probably a bit of like lawnmower engine noises, small engine noises of that nature for that final finishing into the evening. Probably some generators. Obviously, they'll need some lights running and things of that nature. So that's kind of the type of noise that you will have out there.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Reno.
Thank you, Your Worship. With the notification, I understand that weather can change, but we have some kind of outlook. In your best estimate, are we talking 24 hours notice? Are we talking a week's notice? What would be your ideal situation?
Well, as of right now, October 16th is the day that they are going to pour. So as we approach it, we will get a bit more information. So there will probably be a good at least 42 to 72 hours of notice on what day that would be. And if the weather is really unpredictable, then that notice will get shortened up in that period of time. So it all depends on what Mother Nature throws us at the time. And so we will strive to give as much notice as we can as we get closer to the date.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carrick.
Thank you. Just to follow up, so for the notice itself, I would appreciate, and we all would too, and you guys too do a great job, as soon as possible, like even tonight with this public meeting, hopefully starts letting people know that it's actually coming, because we all got phone calls in regards to something that was out of our control in regards to a grade school that was having some work done in their backyard, so with a lot of noise and construction. So the more quicker we can get that out there, the better off I think we all will be as far as giving them heads up notice for the neighbors. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that note. There is a construction update coming out within the next week or so. So pending council's approval tonight, this will form into that construction notice on giving some preliminary indications on noise bylaw exemption and where we're at today with some additional updated photos and things of that nature. So that should be coming out within the next couple of days or so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We don't need an exemption. I think I've read it myself, but for the outdoor illumination bylaw, the town's exempt from that. So if there are lights shining a little bit later at night that are brighter than normal, we don't need that as an exemption?
We do not at this point, because they are going to be very isolated and focused in on the actual work. It's not going to be broadcasting light elsewhere.
Perfect, thank you. All right, members of council, no other questions or comments. There is a recommendation before you. Moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Richo Spagnola, all in favor? And that carries. Item 4, the Heritage Commercial Intersection Improvements through Development Charges Credits, where our Deputy CEO, Mr. Mara, will take that one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is regarding a 25-acre proposed commercial development in the Sanders West Parkway and Heritage Drive area. It's the property bounded by Sanders West Parkway, Heritage Drive, and Moore Drive, as shown in Figure 1 of the report. The commercial development is exciting for the town. It's going to be constructed in 2 phases, with Phase 1 being approximately 150,000 square feet of commercial space, and Phase 2 being about 18,000 square feet of commercial space. There has been some discussions on what type of traffic that this type of development will attract. So this development has some impacts on the current existing intersections, particularly Demore and Sanders West Parkway and Heritage and Sanders West Parkway. The developer has done a number of traffic impact studies. The intersections to deal with today's traffic need some improvement. It's also going to be requiring improvement for as growth occurs in the town. So as more houses get built, these collector roads, which are the classification of the 3 roads I mentioned earlier, they will be bringing traffic from other areas of the town to this commercial development. So it's really geared to accommodating growth in the area, as well as the development and in this local surrounding area. So with that, those 2 intersections require some improvements. Through discussions with the developer, they are willing to take on those improvements. So they will be carrying out design and construction of those 2 intersections. In exchange for that, what the town will offer back to the developer is development charge credits for the amount of construction of those 2 intersections. It's a common practice when a developer is building things that fall within a development charge bylaw, that if they are building it, they will get credits back through the building permit process or the development charge process. So with that, and council is, with the request tonight is for the intersections of Demore and Sanders West Parkway, as well as Heritage and Sanders West Parkway, to be rolled into the future DC bylaw, which is pegged to be updated in 2025. Also with that, because these are 2 collector road intersections, there are a number of other collector road intersections throughout the town that probably require this type of improvement. So as the 2025 DC update will come along, there's also going to be these future collector intersections to be included in there. And ultimately, as other developments occur and have to meet these updates, there's an opportunity to do some of those improvements. With that, I'm available for any questions, and also the developer is present tonight if there's any specific questions to the developer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mara. Mr. Carrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick comment and a question. So that's my neck of the woods, so there'll be some impact on traffic as we're doing the construction. I guess just a rough estimate of timing, is that appropriate to ask at this time?
All indications are the developer will be working towards finalizing their requirements towards the remainder of this year. I don't suspect that intersections improvements will probably occur until the following year, but Mrs. Demore, if you have further information.
Hi, thanks. We're looking to wrap up everything administratively, hopefully have the development agreement done, remove the H from the property, deal with MTO, and then ideally, as soon as possible in 2025, start breaking ground with Phase 1, which is a good chunk, the majority of the property, about 2/3 of it. So we'll be looking to do the majority of the infrastructure, the intersections, and the majority of the site work by the end of summer of next year.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Capata?
Thank you, Worship, through you. And I think Peter might have answered this, but I just have one question that was given to me by a resident. This is a commonly accepted business practice, and it's good for the municipality? ?
Yes, we have, this is a common practice with development charges. When there are projects within development charges and the developer is building that aspect of it, then certainly they will be entitled to the development charge credits that come back to them. Otherwise, we can let the developer not build it, and then the town's taking on the cost, and we are then waiting for the collector. So through this method, Mr. Damore and his group is front-ending the financing of this, and will be paid back over time to be replenished with respect to that. Because the needs are, the intersections need to be improved now in order to accommodate this. As I noted in the report, the intersections will be done in 2 phases. So phase 1, Heritage and Central West Parkway will be done, and as part of phase 2, the Damore and Central West Parkway intersection will be done. So they will be done separately, but at different times, and so they're linked to the phasing of the commercial site itself.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. That's what I took from the report. I just wanted to make sure that when I'm asked about it, I was able to articulate it as well as Mr. Mara did. Thank you.
Councillor Reno?
Thank you. My question's for Jonathan. You had mentioned that there's a fair number of collector-to-collector intersections in the town, and I realize that by asking my next question, we're not looking for a commitment on any of them, but what is an example, maybe 2 or 3 examples of collector-to-collector intersections in the town of LaSalle? Like what, a lot of people don't understand arterial versus collector versus neighborhood even. What's an example of a couple of those intersections?
So thank you for the question. And off the top of my head, to try to think of one, if you go further down to Moore Drive, or to Moore Drive meets 6th Concession, that would be another example of a collector-to-collector. Roads like Laurier, Malden Front are arterial roads, and then the collector is kind of that middle ground road that moves folks from neighborhood to neighborhood, but not so much, across the whole town. So that's kind of, Mr. Mara.
Mr. Mara, if you want to add to it.
Yes, I'll add to that. So Mr. Osborne has highlighted a couple of them, but really the ones that are going to fold into the DC bylaw are all the new ones that are going to be built through the Howard Buford area. The majority of those are going to be required. So I can talk to you and say what intersections they are, but the roads don't exist today. So, again, if you look at our transportation master plan, or if you look at the secondary plan layout of the roads, you'll see those main roads that are identified as part of the plan. So a lot of those intersections are going to need some upgrading as the growth occurs in that area, and that those are the ones that are really going to fold in. Most of the other intersections that exist today are already contained within our development charge bylaw, so that we already have some of those particular intersections covered, but there may be some other existing ones that make it into the new bylaw as well.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Burns?
Move the recommendation.
No other questions or comments? We have a mover. Support? Councillor Reno? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Item 5, the Water Financial Plan. Our Director of Finance, Mr. Langlois.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I have a small little presentation. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, I'm not sure if we can blow this one up as well to show on the entire screen up here. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so the Water Financial Plan is required to be updated every 5 years, and it's required for us to receive our license under the Safe Drinking Water Act of 2002. And a council resolution is required to be submitted in order for us to receive our license. So the report, it outlines a brief history and description of operations, as well as a 10-year financial forecast, which has to be under our Public Sector Accounting Board format, which is the same format as our audited financial statements. So some key factors that affect this financial plan are our service levels, are both capital and operating. A lot of those are legislated, but in a lot of areas we go above and beyond. The growth and types of residences built, we're moving towards a lot more condos and multi-residential, where, 10, 20 years ago, it was mostly single units. The water usage per household, that's also, for the past 2 decades, been declining year after year as people become more aware and different technologies come out to use less water. And then also inflation, construction price index, and the CPI. So some assumptions, like, it's a 10-year plan, so the farther we get out, the fuzzier it gets, the less accurate it gets, and the closer it is to us. But it is, it is a 10-year plan, and we can adjust it. All the rates always have to be approved during our annual budget. But some of the assumptions that we have are the labor and benefit rates in total are projected to increase at an annual rate of 3.3%. The average water purchase price from Windsor Utilities Commission, based on our history, has been going up about 5% per year. Construction price indexes, they have been really high the last couple of years, as well as inflation, but it looks like we're getting back down to that normal average of about 5% for the construction price index and 2% for the regular inflation rates. Some key revenue assumptions. We're going to have an average of 250 homes built per year over the next 10 years. Water usage will go down by about 1% per year, which is kind of consistent with current trends. And then the projected rate changes here. So we have our base rate and capital charge, which are both capital ones, more for meter replacement and others for infrastructure replacement. Probably about 10 years ago, we implemented, as part of our asset management and capital plan, we started building up our capital water reserve by increasing the capital charge by $1.50 per month each year. And that's really helped us. We're getting much closer to being fully funded. So we're continuing to do this here until about 2030, so about 5-6 more years, at which point hopefully we're fully funded, and then we can just increase it for inflation. The consumption charge rate now, it's estimated to increase at 5% per year. We'll look at that every year as part of our annual budget. We'll see what our prices come in at from the Windsor Utility Commission and whatnot. So this is just an estimate, kind of a worst case scenario. But with that being said, we're looking over a 10-year period of, the average quarterly bill using 20 cubic meters of water per month, going up about $68 over, and that's for 3 months. So. And then when you compare, we present this during our annual budget, but if you look at currently us compared to all the other municipalities, we are the second lowest in the region, really close to the lowest. So, even if we roll out these rate increases and the other municipalities have less rate increases, we'd still be in the same position as part of this financial plan. So some of the major capital projects included in the plan over the next 10 years. So over the next 5 years, we're looking at replacing the water mains on Major Boulevard, Wales Street, Riverview Avenue, Beach Lane, Bouffard Road west of Matchett, Maple between Front and Mayfair, and then Mayfair from Reham to Bouffard. Oliver Farms is always on the radar as well. That's grant dependent because that's a very significant project, and it's not just water main. We'd be looking at the roads and storm sewers as well. And then after the next 5 years, that's approximately $6 million over the next 5 years. After that, we're looking at an average of $2 million per year. There have been a lot of water main replacement projects in the last couple of years, which has, we've seen a reduction in the number of water main breaks. So we're getting to the point where, there's not a lot of smaller projects to be done. I think the water main replacements and the roads, we're going to be looking at larger infrastructure projects where as part of our asset management plan, we replace the roads, the storm sewer, and the water all at once as part of bigger projects, so into the future. So just highlights of the plan. As per the previous slide, the major infrastructure projects will be fully funded as part of this plan. The cash balance at the end of 2023 was $14.5 million. It's projected to go up to $31.1 million. That's an increase, but with that being said, there are some larger projects coming down the line, central feeder main project, which is very, very expensive. So just because the cash balance is expected to increase, once we have some of these larger projects, that could decrease as well as we spend the money. The effect on an average household with an increase will be about $270 to $320 per, that shouldn't say per quarter, that's per year over the next 10 years. And that kind of depends, that's a range from 20 cubic meters per month to 27 cubic meters per month. So that's not per quarter, that's per year, that's a typo that I have there. Some factors that could skew the plan, if inflation takes off again, or the construction price index as well, things get more expensive. Obviously, we need to pay for that and raise the funds somehow, so we increase our rates. If residential consumption patterns change, more condos are being built, they typically use less water than a house that might water their lawn or have a pool. If construction varies from 250 units per year, could be more, could be less. Decrease in usage readings over time as the water meters age. Change in the Windsor Utility Commission cubic meter price. There's different factors that can affect that. That's our percentage of usage relative to the other municipalities. Inflation as well. And then overall, if the more water that's used, the more to spend you share the cost amongst more people. So the more water that's used, the less it costs. And then the shift, as I mentioned, the shift in the type of residential buildings, condos versus multi-res buildings. And with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions regarding the report? Councillor Desjardins, I can't see you. Do you have any questions? Did we lose her? Okay, there you are.
I'm good. Thank you for checking.
Okay, thank you. So no questions. You do have a recommendation in front of you, and that's that the report of the Director of Finance dated September 9th, 2024 regarding the water financial plan be received, and that the water system financial plan is prepared in accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act be approved, and that a notice of availability of the water financial plan be advertised, and that the water system financial plan, the council resolution approving the water system financial plan, and the water rate study underpinning the water financial plan be submitted to the Ministry of the Environment, satisfying the requirements under the Safe Drinking Water Act. Moved by Councillor Carrick, support by Councillor Regis Spagnolo, all in favor, and that carries. Item 6, our Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. Our Manager of Finance, Deputy Treasurer, Mr. Ferraro.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The report before you seeks your approval for administration to submit 2 applications to the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. The CSRIF is a $200 million capital funding program delivered by the Ministry of Sport to revitalize existing recreation infrastructure and support construction of new facilities. Each of the 2 streams funds 50% of the cost to a specific maximum. Members of administration have met and have recommended 2 projects for your consideration. Within Stream 1, repair and rehabilitation, administration is recommending applying for the roof repair and HVAC replacement at the Volmer Recreational Complex. As you may recall, a portion of the roof and half of the HVAC units were replaced with the assistance of the Ontario Trillium Foundation's Canada Building Fund a few years ago. This project would complete the remaining roof and replace the remaining HVAC units. This recommended project not only meets the criteria of the grant, roof repairs and HVAC replacements were actually cited as specific examples within the application guide. In addition, these repairs have been identified within our asset management planning as requiring repair and replacement very soon. The estimated cost of this project is approximately $1.2 million. In the event the town was successful with the application, administration would recommend funding the town's share from the Volmer Recreation Complex Reserve. While administration has recommended this project, we did consider other projects, and they include Volmer field lighting, field irrigation, pickleball or parking lot, and river dance accessibility upgrades. Each of those projects are very important, but we felt that this project submitted best meets the criteria of the grant. The second stream of the CRIF is the new build stream, which supports construction of new facilities. We are recommending that the town apply for a new gymnasium and outdoor pickleball courts at the Vollmer complex. The Vollmer complex sees a very high fill rates and participation rates in many programs, including day camp programming, the walking track, group exercise programs, as well as fitness memberships. This expansion will assist the town in providing programs that enhance the mental, physical, and social well-being of the community. In the event the town is successful with stream number 2, additional information regarding the gymnasium and pickleball courts would be brought forward to council. At this time, the project is estimated to cost approximately $20 million. Debt issuance with payments funded from development charges is the likely recommended source of funding for the town's share of 50%. Other options considered for this stream include a gym and pool at the Vollmer. This would be a significantly higher cost, overall cost, and thus costing the town even more than the 50% of the gymnasium pickleball courts. Another alternative was an outdoor pool, playground, volleyball courts, and basketball courts at LaSalle Landing. Those projects did not appear to fit the criteria of the grant, as well as the Vollmer Gymnasium and pickleball courts. I'm available for any questions, as is Ms. Finaro, Mr. Osborne, who assisted with the writing of the report and the selection of the projects.
Thank you very much. Members of council. Councillor Carrick.
Just a quick question, going back to the second portion. For the Vollmer complex with the gymnasium, so we slated when we originally designed the Vollmer to have 3 ice rinks, ice pads. So would this gymnasium take the spot of that 3rd ice pad? Is that? I'm not saying we're getting a 3rd ice pad, just so you know.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Carrick. No, there is still room and expansion opportunity for a 3rd ice pad. Currently, we are doing an analysis of what has to happen at the Vollmer. A pool expansion, 3rd ice pad, the gymnasium are all things that we are currently looking at, how they fit together, how the facility will operate and work. So we are going through this. One of the main needs right now is the gymnasium, and that's why that part of the project is being carried forward as part of this grant application. And certainly when we get to the other stages, as the demand's needed, we can answer council's questions and requests rather quickly of what those projected costs are going to be, what it's going to look like. So we're looking at a overall plan right now. And as we flush through some of those details, we'll have a bit better information as those future years approach and the demands are really needed for those various other expansion opportunities at the Vollmer.
Any other questions or comments? Just on what was mentioned, go ahead.
Just one final comment for members of council, and I just want to outline the completion project for Stream 2, which is the larger of the two. What we're finding is that many of the grant programs that are coming out are having a lot tighter timeline than what we had previously seen from the federal and provincial governments. And so it's caused us to be more in a state of readiness to be able to respond to the grant programs in an effective way. And so that, in the old days, we used to call it projects on the shelf, and having a lot of the design work done ahead of time and waiting for those projects. It seems to be we're in that routine right now. From those members of council will remember the disaster mitigation and adaptation fund grant that we had a much longer, now that project is a much more detailed, a much more physical, I'll call it, project related to stormwater management, and so that deadline was much longer. What we're finding is that's more or less the exclusion. That is a bit of the unicorn. More of that 2 or 3 year timeline is what we're coming to grips with, which is requiring us to be much more in a state of readiness to apply and have meaningful information to submit into the grant. So we've done some legwork ahead of time with this to be in that state of readiness, and I would expect that we will continue to have to do that so that we will be able to respond more effectively to the grants as they come forward.
Councillor Richo Spagnola.
Thank you, through you. To just trying to think of, you know what, to anyone in administration. Just a question. So I see that the second stream is due October 29th, and you have 24 months to complete that project. Is that correct? Or am I?
That would be stream number 1.
Number 1. Why does it say here, it's stream number 2, new build, the project?
Sorry, new build is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2027?
27?
Yes.
But that one's due October 29th. When is the first stream one due?
Sorry, the first stream is due October 29th. The second stream for an application, the second stream is being assessed as they're received with the project completion to be completed within a few years, being 2027. So for stream number 2 for the gymnasium and pickleball courts, those applications will be assessed as they're submitted. There's no specific deadline, but
Okay.
there is certainly a limitation on funding. So the quicker that we submit it, the more likely it'll be reviewed earlier.
And do you think it's possible to be successful on both grants, though? Like, would the grant supplier, would they be able to, I'm just trying to think of how this would work. So it's under the same grant, so you're applying for both grants, correct? Like both streams?
Correct. They are two, but they are two separate streams.
Two separate streams?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Fata.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I like the preparedness, I like the aggression, and I use aggression in a positive word, and I appreciate, as the CAO's outlined, things on the shelf. I'm glad that we've got them done. I'm glad that we're ready, and I hope if, and again, looking to anybody in admin, what can we do to assist? Is there anybody we can call? Is there anybody that we can reach out to? Because again, the privilege of sitting here seems to be that we put together outstanding plans. We're ready to go, and for some reason, I'm very positive. I'm hoping. I only know one guy who got forward on hope, and it's not me. So whatever we can do, Your Worship, we should be prepared to do it. I'm just looking maybe to yourself or even the CAO to give me some insights on what can we do to assist.
So just as a little assistance on that, in August at the AMO conference, we were fortunate enough to get a delegation with the Minister of Sport, which was Minister Lumsden, and he did assist us with a little bit of information, what they're looking for. So I'm very confident in the two plans that our administration has put forward that matches what they're looking for, especially since we haven't even started the master plan that we're going to undertake, where it really is going to identify a lot of the areas that we need to focus on. We do know that we are missing some sports in some areas in the town, and that we are growing out of the Vollmer and are running out of space to host our camps and everything else. There's no basketball, other things like that. So I'm confident what we're putting forward matches what has been laid out in the application, I guess, or the request. I don't know if there's anything else we can do. Like I said, we did meet in August, and I think we had a very good meeting with the minister, the whole 15 minutes that felt like 90 seconds. But our CAO did a fantastic job delivering our message, and so hopefully the minister will remember us. They do have the package. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, possibly?
This is certainly an area that we have focused more intently on over the last probably 5 to 7 years. More interaction with senior levels of government, both at the political level as well as the sub-political level, to try to get in front of more people with our projects. I would say that we're probably doing as much as we can do at this moment. We certainly have spoken with our local MPP, MPP Liardi, on these projects as well as some others. We were fortunate enough to, as the mayor mentioned, to delegate in front of the Minister of Sport. They seemed interested, seemed curious as to how we could provide so much to our residents, being the size that we were. So I think from that perspective, we are doing all the right things. That continued interaction with members of provincial parliament, members of parliament can never hurt. And certainly some of those other avenues that we have. Any more than that and requires, I think, some further thought on what a strategy might look like, and that would come not necessarily identified as part of this grant, but as an overarching kind of goal or strategy that council wishes the municipality to undertake. So that would have to come outside of this in terms of that additional effort. And just for the record, the minister was kind enough to say, get to the point, Joe. So I will say some things don't change, doesn't matter what the forum I'm in. So, but we did, I think we did have a very productive meeting with them as well.
Yes, they actually said that. Okay, any other questions or comments? No, there being none, we have a recommendation in front of you. I can read it if you need me to. Yep. Moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Deputy Mayor Capata. All in favor? And that carries. Consent agenda, there's only the one item, which is the summary reports to council. We can get a motion to receive. Councillor Reno, support. Councillor Carrick, all in favor? And that carries. Any committee matters to discuss? Questions or statements by council members? Deputy Mayor Capata?
Just a quick one, Your Worship. Sunday, September 29th is the Canadian Police Memorial in Ottawa. 896 officers are honored on the memorial, and of course, we have our own Constable Carrick from Sandwich Ridge Township, and I'm sure that the LaSalle Police Service, I know the LaSalle Police Service will be there, as will many of the other police services that have members up on the wall. I know that members of the LaSalle Police Service and the other local police services here have done a bicycle ride where they actually ride to draw attention to the sacrifice of these officers to Ottawa. And again, just to stop, pause on Sunday, and remember those who have provided us what we have.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? There being none, notices of motion. No closed session to report. We go to our bylaws, and the recommendations that the following bylaws be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. And that's bylaw 8924, a bylaw to stop up, close, and sell an alley system running east-west, lying north of part of lot 110 and lots 111 to 128, both inclusive. Registered Plan 793, and an alley system running north-south, lying west of lots 129 to 132, and lots 581 to 584, Registered Plan 793 LaSalle. And bylaw 8925, a bylaw to provide that part lot control shall not apply to certain lands within Registered Plan number 12M661. If I can get a mover, Councillor Regis-Bagnols, and support Councillor Desjardins, all in favor, and that carries. Our confirmatory bylaw 8926 be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. Councillor Carrick and Councillor Reno, all in favor. That carries. And just a correction from my statements earlier at the beginning of the meeting, I forgot there was a change to the schedule. Tomorrow, the flag raising is at 10 a.m., not 2. So if you'd like to join us tomorrow, it's at 10 a.m. here at the Civic Center. With that, the schedule of meetings below. Thank you for joining us in person online. Have a good night.